transportation shall only be conducted by persons holding a distributor license. That means if you're a type 1 up on the hill and you don't have a distributor license as written, you would have to contract with a third party to come get your dry product to bring it to the processing center. You would have to contract with somebody to come get your shape to bring it to the manufacturer, etc. You get the point. Not an awesome arrangement. Last year we fought long and hard to change that. This was the threshold that was in the original MMRSA, but we did change it when it was amended to be the MCRSA. I think we can get back there, but like I said, I was told that we were neutral on the topic of distribution and that we were going to have an opinion. So I didn't have an opinion on that. Let's get through a little bit more on distro, and let me get through the summary, and then we'll, so, the distributors will have to meet minimum security and safety requirements. Those are yet to be promulgated. We're pretty sure that means commercial driver's license, which means you have to pass a urine test. We're pretty sure that means 2 employees in the vehicle at all times. You're not allowed to do solo trips if you're a distributor. We're pretty sure that means no vehicles on the road between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. These are all the sort of general requirements for other similar products. So there will be some rules and some regulations that go into implementing that. The real functional piece here, in addition to taxes, the real functional piece is that a distributor shall hold on their licensed premises all cannabis products until one of 2 things happens. 1, the product passes the test. 2, it fails the test. If it passes the test, they're allowed to release it to a retailer. If you, the grower, had a marketing agreement with a retailer, they can release it downstream, or in some instances, they'll be able to give it back to you. If you have a retail license, if you're your own retailer, if you're going to an event, you have a delivery service, etc. And so the distributor holds the product until it passes, then they can release it, or they hold the product until it fails. We don't know what they do with it if it fails yet. This is a huge hot potato, whether they give it back to you to destroy or whether they destroy it. We're not sure yet. Expect contention on that question. I like give it back to you, but I understand why some folks think if it failed, it shouldn't go back to the licensee. I get it. There will be provisions for reprocessing, repurposing products if it was a fail, a powdery mildew fail. You can scrub that with butane. You can't scrub ibuprofen no matter how hard you try or what chemicals you put in it. So there will, I think, end up being multiple thresholds of fails. If it's a fail that can be repurposed, I think it's more likely that it will be released back to the licensee. If it's a fail that cannot be repurposed, I expect that the distributor will retain custody and ultimately be responsible for removing the product from the supply chain. In addition to that, the distributor will arrange for the testing lab to take a sample. The testing lab will take the samples from the lot. The distributor will be responsible for securing the lot with tamper evidence securing, so that if anything happens after the sample is taken, before the results are returned, the lab can fail the product based on an inspection as well. Even if the test fails, if the product has been tampered with in the interim, they will fail the test and retest. The product has to stay in a safe, secure location with tamper-evident markings while the tests are taking place, and will only be released downstream if it was not tampered with. Let me get through one more, and then just one more point here. And then in addition, the distributor is now the tax collector for all of the taxes. The 15% sales tax is now prepaid by the distributor. The cultivation tax is now post-paid by the distributor. Distributor can collect it from the cultivator. They can take it from the remittance. There's a lot of different ways that could technically happen. That's for you guys to determine in your marketing agreements and your contracts. If you want to pay it up front, pay it up front. If you want to pay it when it's sold, pay it when it's sold. But you as a cultivator will not be a taxpayer, a registered taxpayer any longer. The distributors will be the only registered taxpayers, and in some very uncommon circumstances, the manufacturer will be the taxpayer. Generally speaking, distributors will also collect taxes Nothing changes with regard to your ability to enter into marketing agreements directly with retailers. You can still do that. And then in that case, the distributor may charge a fee, a predetermined contract-based fee for the services they provide. They do not have to buy the product. You do not have to sell the product to them. You can still sell the product to anyone in the marketplace. They just have to hold on to it. Now let's dive into distro questions. I think we have one up here, and then we'll jump to the back, and then in the middle. May a distributor transport live plants, or do they need a distribution nursery, or do they need a distribution license? A strict read of the law is that they will need a distributor as well. Nursery will either need to hold a distribution license to transport live plants, or they will need to contract with a distributor to transport live plants. This was one of the things we were working on last year after SB 37 passed, and I'll tell you my perspective on what happened with distribution is they said, okay, we'll let you cross-license, but we're going back to 0 on every other question. And so all of the progress we had made toward exempting nurseries from the distribution requirement, for example, we went back to the starting line on these things. I do think we have a pretty compelling case that nurseries should be able to be exempt from this transport requirement. I don't think it's going to happen by 2018. I think it may happen in the first couple of years, but if you're looking at a nursery license, I would encourage to start building a partnership with a distributor. You're not next. You're good at jumping out of so we're back here.
In regards to testing, I have 2 questions actually. Is there any push to standardize testing in California? And then second, as far as you know, is there going to be like an expiration date on testing?
Yep.
Test results.
So 2 questions. Is there any efforts to standardize testing in California, and will there be an expiration date on test results? First question, absolutely. There will be a benchmark baseline set of standards. You can read the draft proposal if you want. If you go to cannabis.ca.gov, they've got it up there on the Bureau's website. And so yes, definitely. Local governments will still be able to go higher. So Berkeley's regs, anybody love Berkeley's regs? Berkeley may still operate with Berkeley's regs, but the rest of the Bay Area that sort of adopted them de facto, they won't. I expect we'll see the prominence of Berkeley's regs subside significantly. Quick tangent, the state regs are about 1,000 times better than Berkeley's regs in my opinion. The plate count method is out. It's not a general microbial fail. It's 6 specific subspecies, 4 aspergillus species, 2 E. coli species, 1 salmonella species, actual harmful subspecies, not just microbial activity. So get your beneficials back on your leads. Mold, get ready to rinse. 5% by weight is allowable. Yeah, told you. Yeah. And so here's the thing about mold is it's not actually bad for us, apparently. There's several molds that make poisons that are bad for us, and those poisons will be tested. And so instead of testing for mold, they're going to test for the poisons that the harmful molds make. I would strongly encourage against 5% by weight. That sounds foul to me, but that's just my personal preference. If you want to run with that threshold, I'll buy somebody else's cannabis. But nonetheless, it's not going to be that straight plate count fail that Berkeley has been implementing. And so, especially on the microbials, home run there. Obviously, the pesticides will be the most robust pesticide thresholds in the world, at least that I'm familiar with. So, that was both your questions.
Expiration date.
Expiration date, no.
Okay.
Though there will be, we've heard some chatter that there will be the potential for spot testing on humidity specifically, and that if a retail, or relative moisture, not relative humidity, and if a retail spot test indicates that a lot has too much moisture, they do have a mechanism for pulling it back for further poisons testing with regard to
a recall, basically?
Basically, yes. If they do spot testing, they see too much moisture after the fact, then they can pull it back. Yes?
Priority processing, limits on permits, pause button, speculation.
Yep. Priority processing, licensure limits, pause buttons, phased processing, all of those transition questions. Limits on licenses only for type 3 and type 7, same as before. Priority processing is shifting to temporary licensing, it seems, rather than priority processing. They have noted that they have the authority to issue temporary licenses to businesses that are in compliance. So we talked earlier about if you're not in violation, you're still qualified. If you're actually in compliance, expect a pretty fast track to a temporary license if you have a permit in hand. They will go through and do the full processing, and so that January 2015 or June 2015, whatever, don't worry about any of those things.
And that two-pronged test for priority standing, no?
In compliance as of application dates. If you've got a local permit or authorization as of the date of your application.
Same premises and other stuff?
Yep. Yes. And then there was another one on the end there. Oh, questions about phasing and transition and pause button. My guess is if they've got applications out by October, they'll process them all. Early in January, they'll start issuing those temporary licenses to the folks. If you've got a local permit in your application in October, there's a good chance that they'll put it into we'll process this last file because you'll get stamped with a temporary license very quickly. So you won't get your full permanent license, but you'll get your license to start operating. Folks that come in without a local permit, I think will be processed January to March, and then they'll start just open processing March to June-ish. If you don't have your application in by July, you don't get to continue operating as a collector. You need to have your application in by July 1 in order to continue operating. If you get it in by July 1, you're good until it's rejected or approved or rejected. My guess is that track and trace is not quite ready, and so with regard to transition, I think we will get real accustomed to this product has not met California's regulatory quality assurance standards. And there will be a sticker that goes on products that haven't gone through the full ringer. I think they want to be rid of those stickers by the first outdoor harvest of regulations. So by second week of September 2018, I think they want to have everything done.
So are they going to try and regulate product that already exists, but that wasn't produced under the new licenses?
Exactly, and so that's where these stamps come in. If there's product already on a shelf on January 1, or if there's product already in a truck, or it's already, it's somewhere in storage, it'll get stamped that this is legal, but pre-regulatory. So it's a lawful product to transact, but it hasn't met the QA/QC standards. We'll get over here in a second. Declaring seeds in inventory. Do you mean planted seeds? Do you mean seeds you got on a shelf in a mason jar? By weight. By weight or volume. So you won't have to count each individual 487 OG seeds. You'll just say, pint jar of OG seeds. Except there's no such thing as OG seeds because that's a strain only one. Yeah, one only strain. I can't even think of a seed strain right now. You get it though. By volume or weight, not by individual seed counts. Was there one more over here? Yeah, perfect. Yep. Yep. So, question about distribution. When does it start? When are you going to have to go through the distributor model? When is this all going to kick in? It's not just going to magically be there on January 1st. How is this going to work specifically? And are they announcing themselves? How do you find them? How do you start building those partnerships? I will mention that our sponsors for this workshop tour, 2 of them are distributors. One is primarily a co-op focused on Nevada County, though Rise is out of Santa Rosa and Sonoma. They're, I think, particularly interested in working with Mendocino growers. We do have about 70 identified distributors that are going through the process right now. Happy, we're thinking probably in September, we'll start looking at mixers, specifically bringing those folks up to meet with all of you guys. Figured we needed to get our feet under us on the laws before doing some of that networking, but we do a lot of them. Some of them are a lot more like the brokers that we're used to than some of the newer ones that are a lot more like alcohol distributors that we're used to. So there's going to be a very broad spectrum and diversity of distributors, and we will give you opportunities to connect those dots. As of the timeline of when it starts, the restriction that would ultimately make that go into place is the restriction that a licensee can only do business with another licensee, right? And so right now, there's somebody involved in the supply chain that's not going to be licensed. Either it's a cultivator who's waiting for their application to be processed, driving directly to a retailer, or there's an unlicensed broker in the deal. And so the restriction, all of those folks are members of each other's collectives, of course. The restriction that you can only do licensee to licensee commerce kicks in on July 1st for everyone who doesn't have an application pending, and is not kicking in for folks who have applications pending until such time as their application is rejected or denied. So if you're currently operating as a collective, you're currently doing your own distribution, you can keep doing that until July 1st or until you have a license. I think that was all. There was a few pieces there. I think I got all of them. Yeah. Couple more on distro. We haven't even got to the fun stuff yet. Believe it or not, there is fun stuff. Yeah, what's up? So the question was, how many of these distributors are excited about just being fulfillment companies? Are they really going to be there to just get your product from A to B? The answer actually is about half of the independent distributors. Keep in mind here that the dispensary you're working with, you may not be able to double license as a cultivator distributor. They may be able to license as a dispensary distributor, in which case you could work directly with their distribution division. And so I think there's going to be a couple pathways through there, but there are definitely companies that really are just logistics companies. They've got trucks, you give them a contract, they take the product, test it, and if it's good, they take it to where the contract says it should go, and they send you in. There are several dozen of those that I can point to. And then there's some that are doing both. There's some that have sort of, they'll help you do some accounts management and account building if you want to offload some of that administrative tasks and responsibilities, but they'll also have a fee-for-service division. And so the independent distribution mandate was a lot more exciting to investors. There was a lot more money pouring into distribution a year ago. Now, a lot of the larger investors are sort of cautious. If every dispensary is their own distributor, what's the point? And so we're seeing fewer distributors and probably fewer options and fewer choices. On the flip side, we're going to see more manufacturers and dispensaries licensed as distributors. So, and hopefully growers too, and hopefully co-ops, which is one of the fun things that we'll get to in a second. 1, 2, 3. Question, how feasible is it to get a distributor license in addition to a cultivation license? It's going to be an expensive license. It's going to require premises type B occupancy. It's not going to be a low threshold. It's going to be the highest threshold license for sure. They haven't projected their fee or proposed fees yet for the Bureau. I would be surprised if it was cheaper than the Type 3 indoor, which is $38,000. I would probably budget for around $50,000 a year for the license. And the premises, and the trucks. It's not just. You know, I think I can't tell you what the smartest is without more information necessarily. I think that's obviously an option. I think co-ops are an option. I think, you know, there's a number of options that may be available to you, but ultimately there will need to be a distributor who holds the product while it's tested in the supply chain. Yeah.
So right now it's kind of like the informal distributors are the ones that set the prices. Do you think that that is how prices are going to be set at the distributor level, or how are people going to?
So price setting and how are the prices going to be set? Right now it's kind of the broker. They show up with what they have and they play us all against each other, and you get what you can get from it. The distributor broker is sort of setting the price currently. The question was, how do I speculate that'll work in the future? Well, duh, the price is going to crash, obviously, and it's going to be a commodity, and all you're going to get is your cost of production. And actually, I'm being cynical because I don't think that's true. I think that's what investors want you to believe, because your morale and your courage is actually the most important thing. Markets work on confidence. If producers don't have confidence, it becomes a buyer's market. And so confidence is an intangible. What I think, and what I think you should all meditate on if you're that nature or whatever, if you don't meditate, do whatever you do. I think you should think about this concept of price diversification, where the price of the product actually depends on the product itself. And so the key trademark or the key hallmark of a commodity market is that products are indistinguishable from one another at the wholesale level. Corn is corn. Maybe there's grade A and B corn, but that's all. Wine doesn't work that way. There's 2014 Rutherford Peanut, and that is different than a 2016 Anderson Valley. I don't know what they grow in Anderson Valley. There you go. Okay, but they're different, and I know the difference, and I know those things, and those qualities and those distinctions, those diversify the prices. And so I'm going to pay $600 a case for a good bottle of craft-made wine. I'm not going to pay $600 a box for a Franzia. Just not. Wine is not a commodity marketplace. The grape market kind of is, but the wine market isn't. And so we've got a little bit of imagination to do, but we have all of the tools we need to ensure that California's cannabis marketplace remains a diversified marketplace where products are valued based on their values, where products are valued based on how good they are, who grew them, what their community engagement strategies are, etc. And I think that every time you hear somebody tell you, well, duh, bro, it's inevitable, the price is going to crash, go big or go home, just laugh. That's honestly, it's a cynical projection of an inevitability that, in my opinion, has been weaponized. People don't say that because they believe it to be true. People say that because they want you to believe it's true. And so I think as a producer, you will have more ability to set your prices than you ever have historically. You will be able to go to the events, find out what the consumer is paying for it. If you know what the consumer is willing to pay for it, you know what's a reasonable wholesale price based on a reasonable markup. You can set that price. If you know that your product is going to dispensary A, you can go see how much they're charging for it. It was eternally frustrating to me that I knew my products were on dispensary shelves, but I didn't know which ones they were. I would have to go and look at every stupid, because they weren't putting my farm name on this stuff 5 years ago. I know they are a little bit more now, and so we're starting to see some of that price diversification emerge, but I think the regulated, transparent market is going to be leaps and bounds ahead of where we are with regard to producers having the ability to set prices. And if you guys don't mind, I would love to talk about co-ops next, because it dovetails directly into this. The gentleman minds, so we're going to take his question first. No, that's you. What do you got?
We're talking about prepackaged products?
Yeah, type P packaged products for what?
Prepackaged flowers.
Prepackaged flowers. So, what do you want to talk about that?
Is that a thing? Or
Yes. Yes. No, so there are, we were successful in establishing a subcategory of products, which are cannabis processed products. So there's cannabis processed products, and cannabis manufactured products. Processed products include, I guess at this point, just pre-rolls and prepackaged flowers. We were really hoping for Keef and Bubble, but we didn't get those two. You can make pre-rolls, you can make prepackaged grams, eighths, whatever, and yes, you can send those downstream as a lot. And so if the distributor, if you're selling a prepackaged product, they get a pallet full of your products, let's say, and then the lab is going to come take 1 out of every 100 at random, right? That'll be the random sample. And so there is a method for that, yes. Cultivators with a cultivation license can do pre-rolls and package farm. Can't do anything else at this point. We'd like to see that be a bit more expansive. Were you next? I think you were next.
With the temporary permitting, with how bad the Mendocino County is with issuing permits, you got to the facilities versus working with social clients, et cetera, that kind of thing, how to issue those permits.
So the question is, if Mendocino County hasn't issued permits yet, does the evidence that you submitted the application and it's being processed qualify you for not being in violation of an ordinance? I'm going to give you my least favorite answer to give, but sometimes the best one to give, which is I'm not sure. I think some of that will have to come out in the wash. I think that will rely to some extent on your local government. I know you guys had a great turnout on Tuesday. You can do better. Keep doing better every meeting from now until then. In Humboldt, I don't know if you guys read, Planning Director John Ford did say if you get your application incomplete by June 30th, we will have it processed, or we will have a method for getting you a temporary permit by June 1. And so you need a similar commitment from somebody in your local government. Some of that's going to need to settle out. I think you're a lot better off if you have it, obviously. If you don't have that receipt, you're SOL. If you do have it, I think you're still on the playing field. But I would push them for something a little bit more
August
tangible.
8th.
August 8th. Bingo, that's your next meeting, right? Yep, so I would definitely, there's a reason why we chose now to really launch a concerted Mendocino-focused effort, and this is one of those outstanding questions that needs to be answered, that can only be answered by you. So hopefully, you're not on the bench yet, but it could go either way, and I encourage you guys to get organized enough to make it happen.